Hi, I'm Mitchell.
I'm Doug.
And this is Board Game Battle. Our debate for this week is
Best Deck Builder.
for my champion, I've chosen Mystic Vale.
And my champion is Great Western Trail.
Get it out of here. Starting with Mystic Vale. It's a 2 to 4 player game from AEG designed by John D. Clair. In it, players take on the role of various druidic clans tasked with revitalizing the Valley of Life, a sacred land cursed by the vengeance of a dying king. My first pro is in the endless card possibilities. Each player starts with 20 symmetric cards that represent the land their tribe is responsible for bringing to life. The game features a card crafting system that was developed specifically for it, where you can add translucent advancements to your sleeved cards. Many are completely blank, meaning that you get to choose 100% of what your card looks like.
Counterpoint to that is, while there are endless card possibilities, it seems like the game dictates certain cards are more valuable, and when they come up, you pretty much have to buy those if you want to have a chance to win. Some cards have lesser value and they'll sit out there for a while. So while there's a lot of possibilities, when certain cards are out there, you don't really have a choice. You have to buy them.
I definitely think that the game tries to push you towards buying certain upgrades, but at the same time, there's also like cons of certain ones. Like they may have more spoil icons, and also they have a lot more expense on those really good cards. So sometimes you may want them, but you have to buy the smaller cards to get that engine built up. So for me, that's enough possibility, but I see where you're coming from.
Yep.
Next, pro is the risk versus reward in this game. To set up for each turn, players prepare their fields, wherein they reveal cards until 3 decay symbols show. On your turn, you resolve the planning phase by choosing to pass or push. Pushing means you reveal more cards to use at the risk of revealing a 4th decay symbol, and spoiling, which ends your turn. Most deck builders require players to always draw a set amount of cards, but Mystic Vale, on the other hand, allows for the heart-pumping ability to draw a larger, stronger hand at the risk of losing your turn. As you reveal another card, you place them on top of your deck. These on-deck cards contribute to spoilage but not to your hand. It's a tantalizing temptation to weigh whether or not you should grab that great card into your hand, but at the same time, it may also be your doom if in doing so you reveal another spoilage symbol.
The risk versus reward and the push your luck aspect of the game are nice, but most of the time when I play, it comes down to just counting cards. You know how many cards are in your deck and discard, and if you have enough, you can play them out. And if you have enough mana to buy the cards, then you don't need to push your luck. Or if you don't have enough mana, more importantly, then you have to push your luck to be able to buy any cards.
Yeah, that's true, but the whole counting the cards, in my opinion, is a pro. Because, you and I have talked about how by the end of the game, if you built your cards correctly, every turn you can play your whole deck, and it's a lot of fun. The negative side of that is that our wives will no longer play this game with us. Yes. Because once our engine is built, it's just there's no catching up for them. So take that as you will. My next pro is in the fact that there is a little something bittersweet. If you do spoil, you get to flip your mana token over, which gives you 1 point of purchasing power on any turn of your choice. This allows you to have a bit of strategy on whether you push or pass. If you haven't used your mana token yet, is it really worth it to push? If the attempt goes badly, there's nothing to gain at all. It's basically a bit of a catch-up mechanic.
Yeah, I really don't have a huge counterpoint to this one. It's a nice little bonus aspect to the game. You have to spoil at some point to get it, so it's limited in its use, but it is nice to have.
Yeah, what I like to do is I'm never going to push my luck if I haven't already flipped that token. And so it's kind of, you can use some strategy there and say, let me make sure if I do spoil, at least it'll be at a time when I'll get something out of it. So it adds a few more layers. My next pro is in seeding the deck. If you didn't spoil, you can purchase new advancements. My favorite part of this phase is purchasing advancements with growth icons, which counteract spoil icons. If you keep track of how many growth and spoil icons you have in your deck, hand, and discard pile, you can have a good amount of control over your hand.
The seeding the deck and, more importantly, the growth icons are probably my biggest counterpoints to this game, and one reason why we just don't play it that much anymore. We mentioned earlier how at the end of the game it's a lot of fun to lay out your entire deck. You do that by buying these growth icons and allowing you to play more cards out. The problem is once you do this, there is really no catch-up mechanic, and if someone doesn't have enough of these cards and we're a few rounds in and you can lay out your entire deck, there's just no way they're going to catch up with you. It's a pretty miserable experience for them waiting for the game just to end.
There is that catch-up mechanic, but I will have to agree that flipping that mana token over is little consolation in that case, because by that time, someone has probably already run away with the game. My next pro is in the fact that there's no banishment in this game. Many deck builders allow you to banish weaker cards, but that's not the case here. You always keep your whole hand and never add to it. I like that it's up to you to make your cards viable. So you can't really rely on a crutch of excising weaker cards from your hand.
The no banishment, I don't have a huge counterpoint to this, just that in most of my plays of Mystic Vale, someone reaches the point of laying out their deck completely or very close to it. it wouldn't be a very powerful action anyway in this game if you're able to lay out your entire deck. And then in other games that have the banishment action, I don't use it that often. Great Western Trail does have it. You take a negative action to banish a card. It's there. It's nice to have the options. But again, banishment in general just isn't a great selling point for me.
Well, the thing I like about it is that you have to craft your cards the right way, because once you do that, you're stuck that way. And so it kind of makes you plan a little bit more for the long game. But anyway, my last pro is in the fact that you have control over the end game. The game ends after a certain number of victory points have been gained, and it scales for different player counts. It allows you to control the length of the game. If you build an engine that gains end of game points instead of during game points, you can make the game last longer, and vice versa.
Yep, don't really have a counterpoint to that. I like the aspect that if you want to sandbag in the game and draw it out a little longer to buy some more cards, you can do that. Or if you want to have the game end a little quicker, you can focus on buying cards that give you victory points to end the game quicker. It's a good mechanic.
All right, you heard it from Doug. Nothing wrong with Mystic Vale, so vote for it. That's my last pro. Let's talk about Great Western Trail.
Great Western Trail is a 2 to 4 player game designed by Alexander Pfister. It is published by Eggertspiele. In this game, you play as an early American rancher trying to take cattle from your ranch and sell them on the train across the country, getting victory points. Currently, it is the top 10 ranked game on BGG. It has a rating of 8.3 with over 30,000 rankings. It's a very popular game, a great game, and it's one of my favorites.
So, what's your first pro?
My first pro is simply the aesthetics of the game. The game art is great. The theme fits with the gameplay. The back of the board is beautiful. The box is beautiful. And the aesthetics of the game are one of the better games in my collection.
Look, I appreciate deviations from the norm in terms of theme and board games, but here's the thing. This is not a game about casting spells or something exciting like dungeon crawling. It's about cows, and that doesn't really move the needle for me. Sorry. Next.
Oh, first, I don't know. Every little kid wanted to grow up and be a cowboy.
And I wanted to grow up and be like a knight in shining armor. I guess I'm a deviation from the norm.
There you go. My next pro is it's more than just a deck builder. It's also a point-to-point movement game where you walk your meeple around the board and you can land on different tiles that give you different actions.
I really have no counter here. This is the one thing I will allow you. I do like this part of the game. I don't like whenever games can just fit in one box. I don't mean that literally, but one figurative box in terms of what they are. This has a lot going for it.
Yeah. My next pro is while this is a very complex game, I do think the rules are pretty intuitive. Gameplay, while rated very complex on BGG, is very deep, but actions are simple. Move your cowboy through the map, stop on tiles, perform different actions on that tile. This is a game with a lot of iconography on the board, and to a new player this makes the game seem very complex, but the icons are intuitive. It's a game that I can teach rather quickly, but there's so much depth to this game you can replay it many times without it beginning to feel stale.
I disagree that it's intuitive. I've played this game with you a handful of times now. You own it, not me. And each time you've had to pretty much reteach it to me. There are icons, but the icons only help you if you already know the rules, unlike in some other games. Last time we played, there was an icon that I wasn't sure about, and I asked your wife what it meant. And she's very experienced in the game, and she didn't know what it was either. So even with someone who I considered to be pretty knowledgeable about the game, she was still getting some mechanics confused. And that kind of sets off a red flag for me.
That's valid. It is a more complex game. I'll give you that.
Okay.
My next pro is simply the board interactions. As you gain more money by selling cows or by other actions on the board, you can buy your own special buildings for better actions. Your opponents can also place tiles around the board, and these tiles will slow down your movement speed and sometimes cause you to pay a tax to them. Your movement speed allows you to go quickly through the map and skip many tiles, or you can slowly walk your player around the board if you want to hit more spaces to build your hand better. Each time you take your cows to market, one of the actions required is moving tokens onto the board. Some of these will be teepees, some of these will be workers, and some will be hazards. Once enough workers have been added to the board, the game end is triggered. This sets up a maximum number of turns and helps keep the game from lasting too long.
I disagree that it keeps it from lasting too long. It takes too long. If you look at the board and you see that whole track, you got to get through all of it before the game ends. It is daunting. Maybe it's because I have less experience in the game, and each time I feel like I'm still learning it. But for me, I see that, and it's just, I don't want it to be that long.
Yep. It's a deeper game, but it's one of my favorites. The next pro for me is the various ways to win and the various ways to get victory points. While the game is built around building your deck and selling cows for victory points, there are other ways to grab points along the board, such as hiring workers and building buildings. On the score sheet, there are 11 different ways to earn points, but still, many of your points will come via your deck, either by victory points on the cards, or more powerful cards that will allow you to sell cows further down the line and score more victory points.
I like a good sandbox, but I feel like this one does it a little bit too much. There are a few too many ways to score points for me. Some of them make sense, the cows and things like that, and your train and where you're selling to. But then there's things like hazards and TPs, and it's like you already had the other things. Those seem a little superfluous. That might be one of the things that makes the game go a little bit long for me and outstay its welcome. But that's that.
Valid. My next pro is just the high replayability of the game. The depth of the game comes in many different ways to score points and allows you to play multiple times, trying different strategies to score those points. Depending on what workers come up to purchase and what cow cards are available to purchase, your strategy will change in the game and it will vary from game to game. Plus, each time you set up the game, you can place the 7 starting tiles randomly across the board, which will help with the high replayability of it.
So, definitely the map changes from game to game. And you would think that would make it replayable, and maybe for you it does, but for me personally, each game kind of feels the same because the overall strategy is the same, which I believe is really a crucial indictment against its replayability, but maybe that's just for me. I don't know. It's rated high for a reason, Anyway, we're going to wrap this up now, and we've had enough negativity, so we're going to turn to some positivity, and I'm going to start off by saying what I actually like about Great Western Trail. It gives you a lot of options in how you want to play. It's kind of an engine builder in a way, and you have a lot of choices. So you can choose to rush to market each time and score small amounts of points and money very often, or you can really slow down and build a good deck and have other advancements happen with your train and things like that to maybe go to market less often, but whenever you go to market, you're really making it count. And I really like that you can go both ways and both are viable paths to victory, in my opinion. So, what about my game, Doug? Tell me what you like about Mystic Vale, the good things.
Mystic Vale, I do like this game. I have played it a lot. One of the things that I like most about it is it's a pretty simple game to learn and teach. If you're playing it with people who've already played it, it's a pretty quick play. You can knock it out in probably 30 minutes from setup to tear down. That's pretty nice. If you do have to teach it, again, it's a simple deck builder by cards. You can teach it fairly quickly. New players grasp it pretty quickly. They may not have a perfect strategy, but they can get a pretty good start on it. There are a couple expansions for it. I haven't played any of those, and they might help fix some of the other cons I had with the game. So overall, it's a good game. It can get to the table a lot more frequently than Great Western Trail can.
For sure, for sure. And I know that there's some new expansions or additions coming out of Great Western Trail, right?
Yeah, this year there's going to be another expansion, just a second version of this one, and then each of the next 2 years after that, I believe it's going to be a new version with a different location. So I'm not sure what mechanics are going to change, but it's going to be some good additions.
Kind of like a wingspan thing, different locations of the world, right?
Yeah.
That might make it interesting, or maybe it'll just be more of the same. Who knows? We'll find out. Well, anyway, you guys continue the discussion in the comments and vote in the official ballot by Sunday at 10 a.m. Central, and then Doug will be back and we'll read your comments and we will announce the winner based on your votes. I'll go ahead and say I'm Mitchell.
I'm Doug.
And this is
Board Game Battles.